Okay, it says I'm live. I look like I see a picture. So let's see if we don't have the same problem as last week. Now that's weird. Okay, I'm showing feed on this page. There it goes. Huzzah! Okay. Well, happy Friday. There we go. Live and clear, says the back channel. And happy Friday. Happy Pi Day Friday. It's not the official Pi Day, but it's getting exciting. Today is March 12th, and 3.14 is Pi Day, celebrated over at the Pi organization, and that's going to be this Sunday. And they've got live stuff going on, and they haven't, of course, said what they're going to do because they never pre-announce their releases, but there's always one or two or sometimes more exciting things happen on Pi Day over at the Raspberry Pi folks. So I would check out raspberrypi.org, maybe .org/blog or just the main site. And they have whatever their calendar of events is. I just got an email minutes ago saying that they were going to do something live. So be there. So good afternoon. Welcome to Total Seminars Pi Day Friday. I am Dave Rush. I am the senior instructor at Total Seminars, usually joined by my partner in Pi, Scott Jernigan. He is alive and well and healthy and busy. So literally taking 2 hours out of his life to join us on these things, which he absolutely loves to do. It takes an already insanely busy person with an unbelievably high workload just that farther behind. So Scott's with us. He is working the back channel. You can see and interact with him on the YouTube chat if you're watching live right now with us. Excuse me. And otherwise, in fact, the truth is he's upstairs and he's got this little square stick with strings pulling down, and he's just running me as a marionette. Okay, maybe not the total truth. Oh, let's see. What do they got going on here real quick? Scott's moderating the YouTube channel and message him. So we get together once a week, Friday at 2 o'clock Central Time for 2 hours or so to advance our studies. For those of us who are locked down by the pandemic crisis, gives us the opportunity to continue preparations in studying for CompTIA exams, any other technical things you want to talk about. And of course, our focus is using the Raspberry Pi as a tool to facilitate our education. That education may be specifically pointed toward prepping for a CompTIA exam, or it might just be general computer technology and peripheral technology. Everything that we do is somehow related to something that CompTIA addresses. But sometimes we don't focus on that aspect of it. We just focus on the really cool project nature of it. And to that end, I have 2 projects going on today. One of them is the completion of a promise that I mentioned last week. 2 weeks ago, last week, we finished up a 2-part presentation on setting up a chat server, part 1, and then making it available to people outside our local network, part 2. And then I finished that up saying that I would select one of the methods that we talked about last week and implement that on one of my NAT resources in-house. And oh my gosh, I have had so much fun with that. It's really quick. It's really pointless. I'm not going to talk you through all the steps to do that. I will show you the 3 steps, but long and short of it is I have delivered on my promise. I have a web server running somewhere here in front of me on the 11 Pis that are running here today that you're going to be able to access anytime during this presentation. I'm going to turn off access afterward because I didn't set it up to be super secure and somebody will hack it if I leave it running for 24 hours. But I'm going to fix that. You'll see what I got in mind. And then today, our big project is kind of cryptic. If you were looking at the banner or got the word from Mike on one of his AMAs on the title of what today's show is going to be, it doesn't sound like much. The title is Chromium in Kiosk Mode. What that means is a way to display web pages or sequences of web pages on a computer, a Raspberry Pi, in a browser, except the browser doesn't look like a browser anymore. All the browser bars and the navigation stuff and everything is gone. And it just looks like flashed images or flashed pages. And you can use that to make what in the industry is known as digital signage. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I want you to know that it's going to take us 45 minutes to do it. If you just go straight to the tutorial and follow the step-by-steps after you've done a clean install, it will take you 10 minutes to do. You get to hang around with me sometimes and suffer through my explanations of each of the steps. There's one tiny mistake on the tutorial, and I'll show you that and show you how to fix that. So stick around with me through at least that part. So when you complete the tutorial and it doesn't work, you won't have to smack your head and say, why didn't it work? Okay. Oh, a couple quickie intros here then, and then let's dive straight into questions. I'm trying to get these intros to happen a little more snappy so we can get straight into content. So, man, I got a lot of PDF slides today. Bear with me just for a momento. Oops, that's not the page. That's the back channel page. There's the share page. Okay, so contact information. This is a Q&A. It's a live Q&A. If you're watching me live at 2 o'clock Central on Friday. Okay, I may be back. Comcast glitched out on me. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Wow. All right, back in business. So I was about to do this. Sorry about that. Or I was finishing this up. So if you want to get in contact with us, email us. You can catch us all at totalsem.com. You can contact me on my personal email if you like, drushtx@yahoo. No need to do both. You can call the office. I was talking with some of our office people today. They answer the phones during business hours. And if you've got some crisis you need to get in touch with us personally, you'll have to convince them that it's appropriate, but it's been known to happen. As long as I got you here and we're doing that stuff, don't forget, please do us the honor of liking and subscribing. As you know, it doesn't help us. We don't get paid for this or anything like that, but it helps people who are looking for information about Raspberry Pis and Chromium and Kiosk modes and whatever else we do when we create the indices. They'll be able to find this. All right. Still recovering from the glitch. Stand by. There we go. Okay, I got that. I got that. And the last thing for the intro pages. And then I can get on questions. You close. You go there. Yeah, there we go. Zoom is so incredibly resilient while I'm looking for this. Got to tell you that I was down. I could see things happening. I could see things getting fixed. And finally, Zoom said, I quit. Do you want to try this again on your browser page? No, I don't. And when the problem was solved, even though I was the only one in and I got thrown out, it continued to function. So yet another great set of kudos for Zoom. Okay, last bit of intro-y stuff. As many of you regulars know, every week our sales department communicates a special deal through Mike and his AMA participants and me and our AMA participants. That's only available to you guys. If you're not watching this stuff, if you're not joining our thing here, you are not seeing or getting access to this discount. So, it's not something we put on our social media or our blogs or anything like that. So please take advantage of this. These are week-long things. They tend to change week to week. Sometimes they'll go a week or two and same, but you never know when sales department changes their mind. So this week, AMA special deals, 50% off all CompTIA Total Tester, practice exams, and Total Tester bundles. Now, every time we do one of these, somebody will post a message, the code doesn't work. And by the way, use the code IWD, International Women's Day 2021, when you check out after you've loaded up on your goodies at totalsem.com. So people will post in here, the code doesn't work. It only works for the products that we have listed here. So our Total Tester products and our Total Tester bundles that include other goodies. It's good through this Sunday, March 14th. No, I don't know what time. And as always, if you are a teacher and you're conducting classes, especially these CompTIA or plus type classes, but just about anything, contact Kathy Yale. That's Kathy Y, KATHYY at totalsem.com. She is ready to dump bucket loads of good stuff on you and your class to help things move along as we hopefully have begun the process to exit this whole debacle. Mike has got shot. Other people in our organizations have either been shot or have finally joined waiting list. I'm like the last guy to do this kind of stuff. But I started working on joining the waiting lists in the last couple of days. So I'm not the worst offender of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the last one, but I'm right in there in the deep end. Okay, it's 13 after, 14 after. Let us look at questions, see who's checking in. Angelica came in at 1:30. Oh, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I was posting a response this morning, but I had blurry eyes. I thought it was 1:30 in the morning, so I didn't bother to do it. But hopefully you came back, Angelica Noah. And Tulowitz doing Norwegian. So I responded in German. Let's see. That's me. Greetings, Alan Duggan, almost always first. Hello, Andre. Yes, fill in time. Scott's here. Ask Dave anything. Also ask Scott anything. He's here, just not on cam. I know I'm kind of looking down. It's the way the scroller works. It's down toward the bottom of the page, and I've got it as high as it'll go. Reading questions. What's Andre, what's up with that is 2 weeks ago after one of Mike's AMAs, Mike was holding court over on the Discord channel. We'll give you a Discord link, everybody, shortly. And somebody was talking about me and accused my appearance of looking like Ernest Hemingway. Oh, so that was cool. So the following week, I put my Ernest Hemingway moniker in the lower corner, and then I looked at it and said, Ernest Hemingway is not right. I look more like Kenny Rogers. So today it's Kenny Rogers, and next week you will find white bearded men from history. I'm thinking changing my name every week to something fun. You are welcome to include your selections. Recommend you do that on Discord because that's a little more easier to reference after the fact. Silly. Can't call me silly. Man, it's light. Chat disconnected. Oh, it disconnected and it didn't come back. All right, I've got to recycle this page. That's hopefully the last of the recovery things because all the questions done disappeared, and yeah, the body count disappeared. Man, that's terrible. Lose connection like that right at the beginning. Everybody goes away. Okay. Wow, there's a whole bunch of things that happened in there. Yeah, it wasn't a Zoom crash. It was a Comcast crash. Okay, reading questions, passing 207. Oops, that's on top chat. Got to change that to live chat. Yeah, I was able to get it when Comcast went down. My phone went into 5G mode, so I got Scott's message on the back channel there. I'll tell you what I'll do in future is have my phone all set up, ready to go hotspot. So if the thing ever goes crisis mode, I can just dive into that. Let's see, who do we, Zeno. Xenocetium. Why? What is the subject today? The subject today is we have two of them, one of them accessing my NAT resource from wherever you are right now. And two of them, as I mentioned in kind of the opening monologue, we're going to do digital signage on Raspberry Pis using the Chromium browser and set it up in what's called Kiosk Mode. It's a lot of fun. And I got to tell you, I'll get ahead of myself here. Way back when we started this, there were some people who posted questions that said, how can I turn this into a product, something I want to sell or something I want to support? And we've had some interesting things come along the way that might have been products. This is the one, man. This is a package that you can do at home, get it all prepped, take it to a customer site, install it real easily, and then totally support it 100%, 99.34% from home. You can do it as a monthly service fee. There's all kinds of ways to market. That's not what I'm going to get into today, but man, I am so excited about this, and everything worked so well from the very first steps. I had no fighting with this project. It was just a hoot. Okay, well, one, but not one that you're probably going to encounter. Okay, Zeno change or deleted an answer. Let's see, Andre, I told you looked like Kenny in the Discord. Okay, maybe that was from you. Okay, thanks. I don't know. I've got the memory of a gnat. I don't know if it's my ideas when I do something or if I get somebody else's idea. Okay, well, all right, we're caught up on questions then at 2:17 as far as I can tell. I'll mark that. And let me go right into our two things that we always do before we start projects. One of them is, I guess, to remind you that while we are focused on Raspberry Pis here and using them for learning tools, it doesn't have to be done with a Raspberry Pi. Probably 70 to 80% of the Linux targeted projects that we do here can be done in some other distro of Linux. So set up an Ubuntu distro in a virtual machine on your Windows or Mac machine, set up a dedicated Linux box, whatever. You can do a lot of the stuff here. There's a few things that are Raspberry specific, but by and large, and when I say Raspberry specific, that means can only be installed and run on a Raspberry, but it can still be accessed from a Windows machine, another Linux machine, a Mac machine, whatever. So there's still very valuable tools in the learning department. Okay, review. So last week I did the speed version of this already. We looked at 3 ways to solve a problem, and that is when you create a resource on your side of a NAT router, the kind of routers that we all have at home, the Soho NAT router, it's not accessible from the outside world. So if you build a chat server or a web server or an FTP server, the only people who can access it are the people in your house. And same is true at your office. They have NAT routers because your office, in all likelihood, has a single IP address, so it needs a NAT router. And that's a good safety thing, but sometimes you want people to access from the outside world. And we did a project last week, or a discussion on showing 3 ways to do that. And I've selected one of those methods today, and I have a server that's up and running here at the house that I'm going to have you access. It's all ready to go. Scott tested it from his house before we started the show. So we're looking good. And then this morning in the shower, I had a brilliant idea of what to do with it, and just wait, I'm going to knock your socks off. So that was last week's project. We also took a few minutes and looked at some utilities that will give you good information about your CPU. Today's main project today is going to be this kiosk mode. Kiosk means a computer that can run unattended and without user input. So when I say run unattended, that is without user input. That sounds like a redundant statement, but it's designed so that if you ever lose power, when power comes back, it comes right back up and is fully functional and it's doing its job. So it's totally automated, needs no human contact or interaction once you set it up. And something like that, then I can use it to scroll through images. That's one way to do digital signage. We're not doing that. We're going to use it to scroll through web pages. You could create your own custom web pages that are not, big interactive web pages, just signage. Hey, the company's stock today crashed or broke records, whatever the case may be. Hello, Alex. I'm watching the screen in my peripheral vision. Glad to see you're here. And then, as I said, because it's kiosk mode, we're going to set it up so that it doesn't even look like it's a browser. It's just pages that are cycling through. Really, really cool project and very easy to do. You don't need anything. You don't have to buy equipment. You don't have to buy software. You can do it sitting there at your desk and never move. I worked on this for 6 nights, 1 day and 5 nights. Most of it was done in a couple hours of work each night. I didn't have to work till 2 o'clock in the morning on this stuff. So it's very easy to do, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great project. Doesn't have to be a saleable project, but you want to do something for the kids organization. Man, there's just so much you can do with this. You're really going to like this. I do. Let me see, tricks, traps, and news. We're going to look at a change to the Raspberry Pi operating system screen settings. Works in all models. That's kind of cool. So that's that. Quick look at questions, and then I'm going to get on to news, tricks, and techniques of the week. Let's see. Alex checked in, and everybody said hi to Alex. Yeah, we're a little late today. Call some friends. I need some people. Okay, news, tricks, and techniques of the week. News number 1, if you're here in the U.S. with us, and you're in a state that participates, it's time change weekend. So Saturday night, 2 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. What are we doing? We are spring forward. We're going to lose an hour's sleep. And, I'm the fastidious type. I can't change my clock when I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, because then I will have missed 6 hours of it. So I stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and then set the clock till 3 and go to bed. I amuse myself. All right, let me show you something on a Raspberry Pi. Just pick one at random here. How about this machine? I know you can't see it yet, but you will. Click that, click this, share this, click that. Hey, this is a Raspberry Pi. This is a fresh operating system installation that I did on this past weekend. I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday. And I want to show you something that's changed in the latest version. If you go down here into preferences, you're going to see this one that's always been there, Raspberry Pi configuration, and you see a new one, screen configuration. And I'll show you what happened with that. If we go into the Raspberry Pi configuration and we go into display, there used to be a menu down here for setting resolution, selecting which ports, if you've got a Raspberry Pi 4, which has 2 ports. And you can see they've pulled that out of here and they've stuck that in here now. This thing has detected that I've only got one, it's a Raspberry Pi 4. I've only got a monitor hooked up to one of the outputs. So it only shows me HDMI 1. And I would click that. I would click configure, go to screens, pick HDMI 1. And here I could set a resolution, a frequency, or an orientation. And then when you're done, we apply it. So be aware now. And this is a really important thing to do. Get out of there. If you set up your Raspberry Pi to be headless, no screen, no monitor, no mouse, no keyboard, it will drop to its default resolution when you VNC to it. And that is usually 720 or smaller, and that's too small to work with. So if you go in there and preset full HD resolution or the resolution to whatever kind of monitor you access headlessly, then you will get that resolution. So do that. I recommend. Item number 3. We did time change. We did the new screen resolution utility. I mentioned this in Discord a little while back, a couple of weeks ago, and now I want to share with you as kind of a status. I switched search engines 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks, I guess, to a search engine called Qwant, QWANT.com. I looked at the specs. It had interesting things, and when I've done this new thing lately that says, if I want to try something new, I just go whole hog. I don't dabble in it. If I find that it sucks early on, then I'll bail out and go back to what I was doing. And if it doesn't, I'm going to stick with it. So I'm 2 weeks into this, into a planned month. And at the end of the month, I'll decide if it's worth keeping and not. I have been thoroughly impressed with almost everything. And I found something yesterday that I haven't experimented with. This might even solve the everything. But as searches go, it has been every bit as useful to me as the obtrusive Google. This thing doesn't track you. It doesn't save your searches. It doesn't market at you or provide market information to its partners. It has no partners yet that I know of. So that's really awesome. And everything that I've searched for, how and when, has been available except the choice of video suppliers. It pretty much, there's a few, but by and large, it likes Dailymotion and YouTube. And YouTube is fine, but often doesn't have what I'm looking for. But I may have found a command switch yesterday. I've been throwing it in quotes like we do in Goog, but they're using pluses like we used to do in Goog, and I haven't tested, and minuses, of course. So I'm going to try minus YouTube on the hits and see if that goes out. So that's kind of cool. And that is that item, 1228. I have the next section that we do, and then I'll go look at questions, and then we'll start projects. Old unanswered questions. I have 2 older questions that have been in my box for a couple of weeks, and I just haven't done a great job responding to them for bad reasons. Let's just go with that. But I got them now. And I have not sent this one by email to the questioner. It was somebody who was either on, one of Mike's AMAs or my AMAs, the way I'm looking at the format. It didn't come as an email, I know that. So I'll give the name. It was Rick Allison, who asked if I've used Zoom on Raspberry Pi, and I gave an answer in the YouTube chat. No, yes, I did, but I abandoned it because of the problems with it back when it was going on. But there are new and better projects that have been revamped. And so, did I make a slide for this? Yes, I didn't. Pi-based web server. Well, I didn't do a slide for that. Okay, well, I'll tell you about it. It's easy enough. And you can do it. You can find it easily this way. If you go to Pi My Life Up, PIMYLIFEUP.com, PiMyLifeUp.com, and just look for Raspberry Pi Zoom. You'll find the tutorial that I've really been knocked out with. The official title of it is PiUpMyLife.com/Raspberry-Pi-Zoom. And it's very recent, and it uses an emulator, but it doesn't use the QEMU emulator. It uses the Box 86 emulator, and I started messing with it. So far, so good. Sure, temps. This was one of the big components of his question. He's been struggling, he says, while trying to use Zoom, and then the temps start to climb, and it throttles down. That's true. Whenever you do something that's CPU intensive, the temps are going to climb, and the only answer is they don't have a less intensive program or process. You just got to get better cooling. So for my cooling episode coming up, I think in 3 weeks, I'm using an ice tower. I have it over on the desk on the other side of the table, so no good there. But it's not a very expensive one, but it's not cheap. It's $25, something like that. And they make some really nice cooling cases. The case is metal, and it's got a good contact on top of the CPU to wick away that heat. I don't particularly love that solution because metal cases for me, I find are problematic because we have the Wi-Fi antenna inside there and that just blocks Wi-Fi signals. But I like my ice tower for the experiments that I've done with it because I can do it on plastic cases and mesh cases and no cases, and it's wonderful. Zoom on Pi Link. I made a slide for that thing because I titled it Q&A, no IP. All right. When I get a slow time, I will. I got another question. This person has turned up here on Drama, and he's turned up on Mike's AMA. Asked a question a couple of weeks ago, and I've been banging around on it. And this week, a question came up on Monday or Wednesday at Mike's AMA that was kind of an epiphany for me and suddenly provided a whole bunch of answers. So we had a user who goes by the name Jane Slayer. Yeah. And he was asking about how to create a domain controller environment, a domain environment, but without the complexity of using Microsoft Active Directory and Microsoft Server. It is a complex thing, and he wanted specifically to do it in a Linux environment. And it's doable. It's always been doable, but we were entreated to the idea that you could use a Samba system as a Linux domain controller. And Mike got excited about it. I got excited about it. I started digging on that this week, and I found some really great projects that are fairly easy to follow and understand. They're way too complicated for me to do as a presentation here on Drama. I'm not going to teach Active Directory or directory services or LDAP or any of that. That's, it's a 3-week, 4-week proposition. Mike already did that in his AMAs with Windows Server. But I found some really good links to projects on how he can do that and set them up. And I responded, Jane Slayer, if you're on today or if you catch this in the archive, via email. So we're there. Okay, looking at questions and then on to project number 1, which should take about 10 or 15 minutes, tops. At 2:25, hey, okay, it was a good question, Andre. Nobody's on Total Seminars channel, by the way, Andre, so send messages to either Scott or myself. I've got the Total Seminars account running on another page, but I won't be going back to that page until we hit the big red button to shut this thing down. So, but I read them. Okay, so will ESD kill your MOBO immediately, or can that damage appear sometime later? Yes to both. So Esd Damage, I have a slide here on my computer, and I'll send you an email, or I'll do it. I'll put it up on Discord. There are 2 kinds of Esd damage, and they both manifest themselves inside chips. Could be inside a RAM chip, could be inside a North Bridge or a South Bridge, or some other support chip, or even the CPU itself. Envision that this is a trace inside an integrated circuit. It is, of course, super insanely tiny, 7 nanometers across, something like that. So it's designed to handle a certain amount of current. And if you send too much current through there, one of 2 things will happen. Either it will pop like a fuse, and now that part of the chip won't work. And if it's a critical, daily, regularly used component of it, your system dies immediately. The other one, however, is it's going to burn away a chunk of it. Let's say it's this wide right now, and it burns away a little chunk like this, leaving half the material or 3/4 of the material or 1/3 of the material. And so what you have now is a narrower pathway for data and voltage to flow. 2 possible problems with that. One, it's degraded now. It can no longer handle the amount of current that it was normally designed to handle. So regular amounts of current are going to cause that to heat up and degrade further over time, and eventually it's going to pop. The other thing, here's our 2 wires now. Let's do it this way. There are all kinds of circuits inside chips. Transistors are the one that get all the press, but there's other circuits, including capacitors. And sometimes the way the capacitors work are just running two wires very close together, but not touching. That gap and the length of the wires between them determines the capacitance. So what happens if I burn away a chunk of that? Well, now it's a totally different capacitor. We've got this little gap, you got this big wide gap. Up here we got a little gap again. So the features, the functions of whatever it's supposed to do in that circuit are now changed. So ESD can completely kill it instantaneously or can kill it over time. And if you do a Google search before I get there on Esd damage to microchip in images search, you will find some pictures of scanning electron micrograph photographs. Micrographs is official. Okay, lately I'm not wearing my hood on Discord. I miss my shelter. And there you go. Scott answered that just as quickly. Can a person change the resolution after VNC in? Yes. Yeah, it won't change real time in VNC. You got to go change the resolution. And actually, when the resolution changed, the Pi has to be rebooted for the new resolution to take effect. So yeah, you can use VNC to change the configuration file, but Pi is going to have to be rebooted. You can leave VNC running when Pi reboots. I've done this before. Comes up in the new resolution, VNC reconnects and says, oh, new resolution, and it automatically adjusts for that new res. Rick? Oh, good, you're there. So hopefully you saw my explanation and answer to you. Already forgot your question. I moved on. Oh yeah, Zoom. Zoom on Pi. So look up Pi My Life Up and Raspberry Pi on Zoom. That's the project that I'm experimenting with right as we sprechen. Rick's got a can of kit, comes with it a fan. Okay. Yeah, those cheap, crincy little fans, those are great, but not if you're going to run the CPU under high load for a long time. Yeah, you need a good fan. So minor ISD might not cause stuff to fail right away. Yes, exactly. I like the way Tella would put that. It's a current event. Hey, thanks, Scott. Okay, that gets questions up through 238. So I want to show you what I did to make my web server here in the house accessible to you. We call this, this is a snippet for my own personal purposes, started at 1439. And we're calling this Access NAT Resource from the Internet. The actual, we really did it. So last week we looked at 3 methods to access a NAT resource from the WAN side or from the internet. We looked at port forwarding, we looked at DDNS, and we looked at ngrok. Now we didn't do all those things. I just kind of talked you through the differences and some of the things that you've got to do. So I threw a dart and picked one this week, and it came up DDNS. And okay, the reason it did that is because it's cooler than port forwarding, and I understand it better than ngrok so far. But I will switch to ngrok or one of its competitors in very short order for reasons that will make sense to you. But today I did DDNS. So I've got an Apache server running somewhere here on my desk. And I installed PHP on it so that I could do a little more sophisticated page programming. I didn't make it a LAMP server. It doesn't have a MySQL server. But it's an Apache, it's Linux, Apache, and PHP. Man, all right, I'll get into that. I'll tell you about my PHP adventure shortly. So I created a landing page on here with some goodies in it. It doesn't have interactive stuff. I didn't have that much time this week, and I don't speak PHP and I don't speak WordPress. It's a learning curve for me, and I certainly will because I need to now. But I learned how to hand program HTML 30 years ago almost, and a little bit of that translates into PHP. So I have been hand programming PHP every night this week so that I can have a cool page to share with you. PHP is one of the most persnickety little script languages that you'll ever run across. If you miss a semicolon in 5,000 lines of code and you browse to that page, it just says page not available, page doesn't work, no page, nothing. Not 4,999 pages of good code and something wrong here. It just don't work. So, ugh, what a process. Okay, so let's talk briefly about setting up DDNS for your own purposes. Step number one, pick a DDNS provider. I used noip, noip.com. I like DyneDNS too. I've used them in the past. And there's zillions of others out there, but I use the free tier on noip. So you pick a DDNS provider, and that provider is going to have a list of domains that you can pick from. In the case of the free tier with noip, there's only 4 or 5 domains that you could pick from. So you pick one from a pull down menu, and then you put in what you want to be the host name in DNS of your shared device here. And as you type it in, it will tell you if that name has been taken or not. So I'll tell you now, the host name of my web server that you're going to access is pi_r², P-I, the letter R, and the word square, no spaces or gaps or dashes or underscores, pi_r². There's a good reason for that and a long story that I'm not going to tell you about right now. Things to do. So you pick a host name, you pick a domain. And of course, you've got to register with the provider and provide account names and passwords and do all that gobbledygook. And that takes 10 minutes to a half an hour, if you, depending if you know what you're doing and what to expect. And by the way, I screwed up. When I typed it in, I was touch typing and I missed the E on pi_r². So I made pi_r². Didn't notice it until I did my other 2 steps and I'm ready to test. And then I'm looking at my configuration file and saying, oh, raggedy creds. You can't change the name once it's in the system. What you have to do, this took me a while to figure out and do some reading, is delete that entry and then just recreate a new entry with the correct spelling. And when I did that, I thought, okay, well, this is a DNS entry. This is going to go in a DNS server operated by noip.com. So how long is this going to take to propagate if Tullowit or Andre or Alice wants to type in the name of my resource now, the DNS name? How long is it going to take DNS to figure out, oh, wait a minute, we've updated. So I made that change and it worked for about a minute or so on cleanup. And then I said, well, let's try it. Nothing to lose. Bam. And that was with a friend from another site. And it doesn't matter that would happen from here or anywhere else, because my call goes out to DNS and DNS does the lookup on pi_r² whatever the domain was, and it finds me and comes back to my machine, and it's amazing. You gotta love DDNS. Okay, so that was step number 1. Pick your DDNS provider, select a host name and domain, set up your account. Step number 2, now you have to install a DDNS client on your local resource. That client sends information about the host to your DDNS service. What's the local IP address, some other little factoids about that, and it has your account name and other authentication credentials in it. You have to provide that when you install the DDNS client. It's an easy process. Oh, wait a minute. This is Raspberry Pi. They make DDNS clients for everybody, like Macs and like Windows and like non-ARM Linux machines. But then you got to get into the ARM Linux machines like Raspberry Pi. Fortunately, there is a program out there that's designed to work generically, or no, it's designed to work for no IP, that you can download and install onto Raspberry Pi. I'll show you the links on where to find that, and it's really, really, really easy to do. So step number 2, install the DDNS client. And step number 3, you still got to port forward when we do DDNS. So I port forwarded port 80 of my router, so that whenever somebody calls my router's IP address and port 80, and you're not going to do that from the outside world, you're going to call the DNS name, and it in turn will call my public IP address on my router and port 80, and then the NAT router will translate that to the port and IP address of my internal web host, and my web host will respond to you. So that's the 3 steps. It's done. It's ready to test right at that point. To secure this, until I get TLS going and some other goodies, and I make sure that people can't access that thing and therefore access the rest of my internal resources, the only choices are to turn off the web server or to disable port forwarding or get rid of it as a DNS entry out there. So I will, at the end of today's live drama, turn that off, but it will get turned on again for reasons that I will make clear shortly. Okay, covered all of that thing, covered all that. Final step, port forward. The clients are available. Why not work on Raspberry Pi? So, okay, so step number 1 is to show you the no IP tutorial that I used to install the client. Oh, by the way, the DDNS client is called a DUC, D-U-C. It's a dynamic update client. So hold your login credentials to no IP or to whatever your provider is. It knows and uses the fully qualified domain name that's registered with them. So let me show you ever so quickly where you could find out how to do this. There we go. Click that, click this. Arg. Not that, this. Okay, so this tutorial at raspberrytips.com, install no IP Raspberry Pi, it runs you through the whole process of how to go to noip.com and how to register and all that stuff. And it's a little bit out of date. Their menus have changed a little bit. You don't need that stuff. All you just go there and you can figure it out. It's very standard sign up with a service kind of thing. And it's very menu oriented on what you have to do. Somewhere after you create your account, it's going to send you a verification email. You got to go to that and you got to click on it. You know that you've done that and other kinds of things. But the cool part in this tutorial is the following steps: how to install the DUC. So these are the commands to do it. All you've got to do is be in your Raspberry Pi, go to your home folder, which you normally are, make a directory called no IP and change into it. And then you run this wget command. That will download a zip file, a GZ file, that's got all the DUC stuff in there. You unzip it with this command, the tar -zxvf. And then it'll create a new folder underneath where you're playing. The current name of the folder is noip-2.1.9-1. And later that'll change as they update the DUC for something new. It might be 9-2 or 10-1 or whatever. Just do an ls in there, a dir, and see what the name of the folder is. You cd into it, and then you run these 2 commands. Sudo make, that'll configure it for your local machine. And then sudo make install, that installs it, makes it run all the time. Next time you reboot, it'll do it. And during the installation, it'll prompt you for your account name and your password so it can log in to no IP. All right, so I did all that, and the only thing left to tell you about is how to access my Raspberry Pi server. So you can open up another tab right now. You can listen to me while you're experimenting with this. It's just a quickie little, it's not fancy, but it was something that I had a little fun relearning PHP basics. It's a lowercase p, but it doesn't matter, I don't think. So pi r square, per square if you like, .zap2 or zapto.org. Just go into that and from your browser, from a tab in your browser, and you'll be looking at it right here. I can't see what you're doing to me. I'm headless on that machine, and I'm not collecting any stats today. But how freaking cool, huh? pirsquare.zapto.org, and you are hitting my Pi-based web server right here in this house. Now, what's cool about that? Did that. This is a free tier from No IP. No IP lets you have 3 different host names on a given domain. So I can set up 2 more boxes here. I can set up an HTTPS box. I think they support SSH. They don't, not every DDNS provider supports every protocol. Some of them support any TCP protocol. You can run on any kind of box that has a TCP port. All right, so it's not secure if you go to it. It's just an HTTP. It's not HTTPS. Some browsers get upset with that. Hey, wait a minute, you're not talking to a secure thing. To my knowledge, it's safe. I don't think I installed any viri in there, but I make no promises. All right, so the first time you do this, time-wise, figure half hour, 45 minutes. That's how long it took me. I went very slowly. I went very carefully. I made the mistake. I had to go back and find and fix that and how to do it. But having done it now one time, I can do this in 5 minutes. No more than 10, almost certainly 5 on any web server that I got running here in the house. So cool. All right, that completes the snippet. So I was in the shower this morning, and something that we've brought up in these classes many times in the past, suddenly a solution came to me. Holy Hannah, if I make a secure server and I use a nice secure service like ngrok that you can access, and I can run this 24 hours a day, I have a place to put all of the links and resources and tutorials and everything that I've ever done on these drama sessions on that server, and you could go get it. So I'm doing it. The only thing I got to do right now is decide who's going to pay for it. ngrok costs, I think, $60 a year. It's not $100 a year. But I'm going to see if I can convince the powers that be to let me do that. That solves a lot of our problems, like never getting together for meetings and deciding, hey, where can we put this stuff? And I can do this. It's a cakewalk. All right, so that's where we're going. So watch this thing to grow over time. And I would expect in the next 1 to 2 weeks, I'll have the initial stuff done on it at a minimum in the free session. I can put a certificate on there for no charge, and at least we can make it safe that way. All right, this thing, yeah. What's the body count look like? Is this worth doing this right now? Check. Man, we are dead today. Thank you for the 11 or 12 of you who are here with this. I think I scared everybody off when we lost connection. And again, I apologize for that. All right, let me throw this slide up real quick. Again, for anybody who's looking at it in archive, that will be useful. Man, if I do that one more time, I'm just going to be upset with myself. I keep going to the wrong thing because I got utilities that look very similar. There is an unofficial Total Seminars Discord channel. It's owned and operated by Jose Braden. We have nothing to do with it other than our name is kind of on it as unofficial, but we participate in it as regular Joe Schmo participants. And oftentimes after these AMAs, including today, we go and hang out there. We do it with cameras and mics. You can watch and spectate, or you can just participate in text. If you don't already have an account for Discord, or if you can't find it, here's the invite that I got when I go to it today. It changes every day. Scott's going to put up the invite that he gets when he goes there. So check it out. And if you're watching this in the archive, these things won't work, but just do a search at discord.com perhaps for Total Seminars or Unofficial Total, or I suppose even Jose Braden. I've never tried that. And you will find Discord. We got about 200 or a little more than 200 people who hang out there now, and they're brilliant. They're the people who hang out here. We got people who know a lot about a lot of aspects of computing. They study together for CompTIA certifications. They ask tech questions of each other. There's a Kali forum. There's a Raspberry Pi forum. There's a YouTube forum where we talk about what happened on the YouTube AMAs that Mike and I do. General forums. I invite you there. I'm going to be there 10 or 15 minutes after the show today. I've always got a little bit of a cleanup to do and got to get dinner started. Hey, I just heard the missus come in the door. She may get dinner started. We'll see what happens. Talking about you, not to you. All right, look at the last questions and then start the Kiosk Mode Chromium project. Let's see, did I mess things up? I think I said I was done around 2:28. Yeah, it's somewhere in the area. Scott Journey and Andre's talking to Scott. We know someone who might have fried his mobile this way. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, if you're playing with electronic circuitry, don't be cavalier. Mike does that all the time. I know that I won't shock anything. Let me tell you my two little factoids about ESD. It takes 30 volts of ESD to damage a trace in a circuit, in an integrated circuit. It takes, are you ready for this? If you go buzz your leather shoes along your wool carpet and you do what I used to do, touch my little sister on her nose and to feel that spark, or anytime you get a static spark that you can feel, you know what the minimum threshold of voltage that it takes for most people to feel it? Not 3 volts, not 30 volts, not 300 volts, 3,000 volts. So if you're sparking 3,000 volts between you and an integrated circuit and a place for it to go, ground, there is a likelihood that you will have done some type of damage. May not fully destructive. And, you know, if the spark goes from you to ground and not the integrated circuit, then you lucked out. But if it passes through an IC, not so good. Scott says, yeah, the ESD we like is dramatic. So there are some people very cavalier about this stuff who think they're not going to static something because my room is humid or because it's warm in here. No, a wrist strap ground to ground or to chassis or something like that. So the static electricity that builds up on your fingertips leaks off and can't spark. Okay, moving along here. You're in a minor SD, you might not cause stuff to fail right away. Yeah, so I'm behind here. 238. 30 years ago. No one has accused me of looking young in years. I was cleaning out some pictures yesterday, and I found some stuff from about 6 or 7 years ago when I was with the company, and I was traveling to a city near where my nieces and nephews live. There was only a smattering of gray 7 years ago with pictures of them and their family as we went to an event. It's always important to get your ducks in a row. No, 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 that's not the line, and it's too weak. It's it looks fine. Get rid of the duck, and I'll let you look that up. Oh, good. We're going to do volt puns. Hey, speaking of puns, and this is the last of these little posters that I have. Next week, for the next 3 weeks, I have really cool stuff that will be prop of the week, and then I've got a whole new pile of concert shirts from concerts that we attended a long time ago when we shouldn't have been spending money on concerts. We should have been investing it and doing smart things with it, but we did that. But it was just concert money. We didn't have the kind of money necessary to buy a $30 shirt back then. So now we're of slightly greater substance. So now we can buy some of the shirts from concerts that we've attended but couldn't afford to get the accoutrement. All right, here we go. It's on the hour. 3 o'clock, we start the big project entitled Chromium in Kiosk. For my notes, this is a snippet. All right. There's a lot of ways that you can cycle through images, content, pages with a program on a computer, Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever. I have a program that I use called FEH, F-E-H, that I provide on a Raspberry Pi to some of you know about my side hustle. We have a little rental business where we rent dance lights and projectors and stages and all kinds of goodies like that. So if somebody wants to rent a projector because they want to do a slideshow, they got a pile of pictures of the kids growing up and this is their wedding reception and how it's come to here, or the kids growing up to the birthday party or whatever. So I just say, give me the pictures on a thumb drive, and I copy them into my little program directory folder here and start the program, and it starts cycling through the pictures, 5 seconds a picture or whatever the customer wants doing. It goes to the projector and onto a screen, or directly into the HDMI port of some regular television type screen. And that's great for doing images, photographs, JPEGs, whatever. You can kind of do that with a browser, but bleh. So I think in some instances, we want to see stuff that you see on web page. Now, some web pages have just text on them. Some have interactive photos. Hey, by the way, Scott, every now and again, as you see body count go up, man, I'm boring people. I'm losing people like crazy. We can shut this down. If you don't want to hang here or do this anymore, that's okay. I am here to serve at your pleasure. If you're not finding stuff here useful, then so be it. But I'm going to plow through today. And of course, it helps when we have Scott here. He's interesting and keeps me on track. So there's also some really cool things on web pages that are really interesting, like, I don't know, you're in a train station and you want to see train arrivals and departures in real time. They put that on web pages. In fact, I know that because I found train schedules and plane schedules in real time. How about stock tickers and trackers? Some of you are into digital currency. You want to see tracking while you're traveling, while you're walking through the airport, while you're walking down the hallways of the elementary school. Well, okay, that's great. We can set up a browser to do that. Problem is, looks like a browser. And we got to automate it some way so that it cycles through the pages. Well, that's what Kiosk Mode does. And of course, the really neat thing about this is you can add or subtract any web page from any web server in the world to your rotation. And if you're maintaining your own server as a source of information for customers or whatever, you can edit those web pages yourself, and every Kiosk Mode Raspberry out there that refers to that page will instantly and automatically update. It's so cool. So all this stuff, cycling through pictures, cycling through information screens, cycling through web pages, it all falls under a category known generically as digital signage projects, products, services, and operatings. And digital signage, sorry, hiccuping, is the single largest category of installations for Raspberry Pi in commercial environments. Doesn't mean there's more than 50% of all commercial Pis in there, but if it means 10% of all Raspberry Pi commercial installations are digital signage, then nothing else has at least 10%. So the tutorial that I'm going to use, and I encourage you to bookmark this, open it up in another tab and follow along with me. Man, all right, I'm going to make this slide real quick. I apologize. I will be somewhat silent for a moment. Let's do this. How the heck did I miss that? Oh, no, there it is. Nope, it's not. Jiminy Christmas, what a goober. All right, I have to change that. Sorry, but this is important enough that it's worth doing this for you. So we're going to do this. Let's see, let's keep this simple. Do this, do this. Okay, I have Microsoft Word open. I have the link on the page. It's highlighted, it's bolded, it's got a big font so you can see it. 24. Save it. Okay, it's saved that way. Now we save it as a PDF so we can put it up in the view. Almost done. Save as. I'm sorry, normally I would just skip past something like this and read it to you, but this is useful. Okay, it's saved. It's going to come up in my, yep, there it comes magically. Good. It's ready to share. All right, so here's the tutorial that I used in general. It works very well. One minor typo in it or a minor missing step. So it's pymylifeup.com, raspberry-pi-kiosk. So save that, bookmark that, and then, as I said, go to that thing in a tab and follow along this project there. That'll make things go much more quickly. And if you're not doing that, I'm going to cut some of this short. It's 3:07 right now. I'd like to be done by 3:45 so we can take care of last questions and things like that. Okay, moving on over there, moving over here, and here we go. So I got a little slideshow here. So we call, what is Chromium and what is Kiosk Mode? Chromium's the default browser that's included in the Raspberry Pi OS. It's a derivation of Mozilla, from which comes Firefox and other popular browsers, including my browser of choice, Brave. And it's possible that you could do this project with other browsers. I haven't experimented with them. I know Chromium works, and since we're being Pi-based, it kind of makes sense. Kiosk Mode, I didn't look up a definition. I just went by my experience here. So I'm saying Kiosk Mode is any computer or application that auto launches on power up, runs fully autonomously without any user input. So envision a computer or at least a screen that's in a kiosk, in a mall perhaps, and it's got signage on it, store locations, mall events, sales that are going on. And now we'll up the ante a little bit. Instead of just a sign that's got "you are here" on the mall, or a single thing that says "there's a sale at Penny's," somebody better get that. We could have multiple pages that cycle and stay up for as long as you want. I think the cycling that I have on mine today, I have set at 7 seconds. The tutorial defaults to either 10 or 15. I don't remember. So what can I do with this? I'll tell you an interesting one. There's a restaurant in my area that when you go in, there's a great big 84-inch television that you can see when you're in the queue, and it scrolls through different menu pages. So here's all their offerings and their prices, chicken offerings and salad offerings and hyena offerings. God, I love their boiled hyena, man. Envision where you put these things, right? They go in restaurants, they go in airports and bus stations and stores and arenas and schools, and in your conference room at the office and hallways in the office. And because they're web pages, they can support all the kinds of stuff that web pages do. Static information, live audio, live video, real-time information. It's endless. So as we said, if it looks like you're running a browser, then it stops looking like a sign. So the whole point of Kiosk Mode for us is turning the Chromium browser into a content shower, but it doesn't show the browser infrastructure, the navigation bars and the sliders and the things like that. So the basics, what do you need to set this all up? You got to have a web server that's got content on it. You could make your own, add content yourself, or you could just hit pages from anywhere. I'll show you demos of both of those. Then we need our kiosk machine, Raspberry Pi, running a Chromium browser, and a little program. In fact, we're going to add about 4 programs to this thing, and it's all done with sudo apt installs, and I'll explain what they are, and they're very cool. All right, so I got a slideshow. Right, I do. All right, so here is the general steps of how it looks when it's done. There exists out there, let's say for the moment, a web server, and it's got some pages on it. And maybe ordinarily you access those pages by links. Well, what we're going to do is, in our initial setup, go to each page and copy down the browser link for that page. And then later we're going to put each of those links in a file. And then we've got a computer that's got a screen that's going to show us what those pages are. Yeah, I know. Brilliant artwork. 13 years of art school have lended me to that. No, I never went to art school. So this browser, this is a normal browser. You can see I got tabs open up there, and I've got all the info stuff from my computer sitting on there. I screen captured this on a Windows machine running Brave. So it's calling out to that web server and looking at one of the pages on there. The pages, yeah, I guess include the arrow explanation. So that page is being sent from the web server to my browser in response to my browser asking for it. And maybe there's another page that I'd like to see. And another page, just a text page. I'll leave that up there for a minute so you can read and hopefully get a giggle out of it. So I've gone back to page A and said, hey, wait a minute, what if I want pages from another web server? Cool. Just pick the page that you want on a different server and add it into the browser's rotation. Oh, and look what happened here. After this one, I went kiosk mode. So all of the tabs and all of the other junk disappeared down here. And it's all gone from there. It looks like signs now. It's signage. So now let's, instead of use a Windows computer to do this, we'll use a Raspberry Pi. This is really cool. I can mount this on the back of the television if it's in a place where people aren't likely to damage or remove it. If I'm feeling a little creative, I could even pull the back cover off that television or big screen and mount the Pi inside there, maybe behind the wall, whatever. I need an HDMI link between here and here. And this has to have some kind of network connection. It can be either wireless or it could be wired. So, hey, go add this page from a different web server into the page. This is a news site that I found back in 1978, I think. All right, so that's the general principle of this thing. Should I keep that up? Yes, I should keep that up. There's something else on there. So we're going to take advantage of two features in Chromium that enable kiosk mode. One, it can be launched from the command line. So once we get this thing set up, the only thing that's ever going to be on the screen is the usual desktop image, and you're not going to interact with the screen. You're only going to see that or the browser. Actually, you're not going to see anything on the web server, but yeah, on the one on the kiosk machine. I stole that directly. Now you're going to make me look. Hang on. Oh man, I dropped the N. You are right. I copy pasted that. I must have bumped it when I was editing on the page. All right. General Francisco Franco, not Fracco. That's why we have editors. I've always asked you to edit Mike's stuff before his shows. I'm going to send my stuff to you like you have time, and you could edit it. Okay, so feature number one, Chromium can be launched from the command line with flags that set it into kiosk mode. And what it does is when we pick our pages, each page is loaded into a different tab. Now, it's a background thing. You don't see the tabs. And then our next command is we have a script that will issue keyboard shortcuts that will cycle through the background tabs and show them in the kiosk mode browser. That's really cool. I'm going to love you to get into that. If you want to see, you can do this right now while you're watching me. Kiosk mode in your browser. All browsers will support kiosk mode. I don't know if they'll all support it from the command line. Just touch the F11 key right now. and your browser bars and all that infrastructure is going to disappear, and you got a screen. And then to come back, press F11 again. Now we can issue that as a command in a script because nobody's going to be there to press F11 anytime if it reboots or if you need it. So here's a nice thing. Envision this being your signage, your messages, your whatevers are of a corporate nature. They want to go to information in your corporate hallways. So you build an in-house server, you set up the pages you want to see, and then every place that you have an office with an internet connection, set up one of these kiosk mode browsers, and it will call the home server web page and cycle through that stuff. When the web pages get updated, it automatically happens in all those offices. So that could work all over the world. Isn't that cool? So step number one, pick or make the web pages and web servers that you want to do. That's the most time-consuming thing here. If you got to build a web server, if you got to play with PHP, if you got to make your own pages, I don't have a time estimate for you. It's all based on you. If you want to use existing content from other pages out in the world, cool. Just browse to them and save those links in a text file somewhere that you can use later when we program this thing. So pick web pages or make them and install a web server. We've talked about how to install Apache web server in our series here. It was back on June 25th of 2020. You can find that in the archive. Very, very simple process. I recommend that you create pages without links on them because there'll be nobody there and no way to click those links. You can add and subtract pages anytime from these kiosk browsers. You can update and change the kiosk browsers with an SSH connection. In fact, that's the way to do it for all intents and purposes. Okay, we've picked our web server, we picked our web pages, we've got them documented. Step number two, let's build a kiosk machine. Any Pi will work. This is a very light load project. It's a browser running a simple script. So I went overkill just because it's what I had on the top of the pile. I got a Pi 4 with 4 gigs of RAM and a 64 gig card. This would have worked just fine with a 16 gig card on a Pi 0 with a half a gig of RAM. So I think a Pi 3 is kind of ideal for something like this. And a 16 gig card is just fine. If I'm doing this in the real world, I wouldn't do this with a micro SD card. I would do it with a flash drive because they're more resilient. They can handle more read writes than a micro SD card. Those are eventually going to get crashed. Project time. If you include everything, including a fresh download of the current Raspberry Pi OS and the installation and the updating, that's about 2 hours. And then if you follow this project along with me from the time I started it 20 minutes ago, it's around 45 minutes or so, maybe a hair longer. But if you just follow that tutorial step by step, you can do it in 10 minutes. Plus time if you need to build a web server and make pages. So let's get started. I'm not going to download and install a fresh OS. I've obviously already done that. We have done that many, many times here in presentations and shows. So I will simply tell you that if you want to need to do a fresh installation, go to raspberrypi.org/downloads and download the current full version. You need the one with the GUI in it of Raspberry Pi OS and the Raspberry Pi image writer. They'll both come down as a zip file. Unzip them and then use the image writer and your handy dandy little micro SD card reader, writer, or if you've got a native slot in your computer, like in a laptop, put your blank micro SD card in there or the one that's going to be overwritten. You use the image writer program, burn the downloaded IMG file onto the little micro SD card. While that's happening, set up your Raspberry Pi. Just set it up like normal. Use a screen, use a monitor, use a wired or wireless connection, doesn't matter. We're going to make it headless during the course of the installation. So the install completes. It runs an update and an upgrade to make sure you got the most current stuff. Let's get that in order here. So I got it all hooked up and connected except for power. My micro SD card is done. I insert that into the micro SD slot on the Pi, power it up, and now it boots up. It runs you through the installation wizard. When that's all done, it does an update and an upgrade, and then we're ready to start working. By the way, mine choked on the update upgrade. I rebooted it and did a manual sudo apt update, sudo apt -y upgrade, and everything came out fine. I don't know why it choked, but maybe the new version's got a little glitch in it, so watch for that. All right, so what you've got now is a brand spanking, shiny new Raspberry Pi OS on a Raspberry Pi. It's nothing special at this point. So first step in configuring it is to make it available to the outside world so you can run it headless, or so you can access it headlessly for updates. So here, let me show this to you. Wow. Oh, there it is. Okay. Click that. Let's go to the kiosk machine. I know you can't see it yet. It's okay. You will share. Okay, so this looks exactly like it would if you'd done a fresh, shiny new install. You click on the Raspberry Pi icon in the upper left corner, go down to Preferences, go to the Raspberry Pi Configuration utility, and the default name of the server is going to be Raspberry Pi, so you'll want to change that. You should boot to desktop. Auto login should be enabled. They've got a little, do that now. Do this here at the beginning of your configuration, and you can skip the challenging way that they have you do it in the tutorial. Don't care about splash screen, and for what we're doing, we don't care about waiting for network to boot. And then we got to go into the interfaces, and all the interfaces will be disabled except this one, which is grayed out. So you got to enable SSH, certainly, and because I like working in a graphical environment when I can, enable VNC. And when you okay the changes, because you've changed the name of the Pi, it's going to have to reboot. So let it reboot and pick up the process from there. All right, let's keep that running and willing to share if it so chooses. So at this point, if you want, you can disconnect the monitor, you can disconnect the keyboard, you can disconnect your mouse, and you can access it by real VNC or by SSH. Everything that we're doing can be done with SSH. We've done this a million times before. Let me put this slide up to share for you, just in case you've forgotten or haven't done it yet. You're going to want to connect either with SSH or with real VNC. If you haven't downloaded appropriate clients to do that, here's where you can get them. Okay, bring this up. Imager, download, there we go. Click it, share it, select it, go. All right, so here's where you get the most current version of PuTTY. That's an SSH terminal sharing utility. If you haven't downloaded this yet, do this at the end of today, so you've always got it. We don't have to talk about this in futures, but we'll still put this up because there's always new people. And if you want to access the system graphically, here's the link to go download the real VNC graphical viewer. Okay. Did that. There's where you get the Raspberry Pi image writer and images of the operating systems, raspberrypi.org/downloads. That's what happened. I had that duplicated. And there's the kiosk tutorial. Okay, I've been through all of these slides. I don't need to bring up any more of them. Huzzah. All right, so we are now following along the tutorial. over at the PiMyLifeUp.com, raspberry-pi-kiosk. So the first thing that they recommend that you do, and this, I don't believe that this is necessary. I didn't do this on my install, works fine. This will save a little space on your hard drive, SD card, whatever you've got it on. Their tutorial says it'll save some memory. No, it doesn't save any memory because none of these programs run automatically and you're not going to run any of them. But step number one, they tell you to sudo apt purge and a list of programs and do it again with another list of programs. If you want to do that, that's fine, but it's not necessary. If you do that, their next step says clean up any unnecessary dependencies that are left over. They tell you to run sudo apt get clean and sudo apt get auto remove -y. Again, if you didn't remove any programs, you don't have to do that. If you did a fresh installation of Raspberry Pi OS, you don't need to do the next two steps, sudo apt get update and sudo apt get upgrade. We did that as part of the initial installation. If you want to use an existing Pi that you had running around for months or years or whatever, then okay, do it. All right, now's the first time that we actually have to do something and do something interesting. We're going to install 3 programs. So their instructions say sudo apt get install xdotool, unclutter, and sed, S-E-D. I'm going to get into what all of those are in just a couple of moments. We're just going to follow their steps. Next step, we've already done this if you did what I've told you to do up to this point. If not, then you're going to have to do this manually. Want to make sure that the Pi is set to auto log in whenever it boots. And so they say you want an SSH connection, or if you're still hooked up to your monitor and keyboard and mouse, open up a terminal session. You've already done that because you had to do that for this sudo apt-get update or apt-get install. And what you'll do in your terminal session is run sudo raspi-config. And you know, every time somebody writes a raspi-config process, step-by-step process, raspi-config is different than what you find in there. So this is the one that I ran this week just to get their steps right. Their steps are a little off. You can dig if you're not watching this thing. And I will, before I'm done, post my notes up here on my shareable web server, and you can follow my steps and it'll work better. But you're going to arrow around, go into the system options, enter on it. I'm not going to show this to you. Go to the boot auto login entry, press enter, and arrow to desktop auto login, press enter. Then you tab it, you enter it to finish it, and you'll have to reboot. Okay. Then you'll reestablish your connection or reuse your mouse and keyboard if they're still hooked up. The cool thing about that method, that's a default with Raspberry Pi OS, by the way, is when it turns on, it doesn't sit there at a prompt waiting for a login name and a password to get you to the desktop. Auto login is by default enabled with the current version of Raspberry Pi OS. I run you through that earlier in case it changes and you're watching this on the archive a year from the time we recorded this. Next, we're going to create a bash script. In fact, that's almost all that we're going to do here, and then we're going to run it. So they give it to you line by line, and at the end, they give you a summary of it. So to start up, we go to our home folder. If you just type in CD, no parameters, you're in your home folder. And then you can nano, that fires up the editor, kiosk.sh. .sh files are what we use for bash files, bash shell files. And they start off by saying, let's put in these 4 lines. Shebang, whack, bin bash. Pound, exclamation point, is a shebang, and that's followed by the interpreter program that's going to run this script. So the name of the program that runs this script is bash, and it's in the whack bin folder. These 3 xset commands are because we are using an X Windows interface. That's what generates our GUI and makes our mouse work and all that stuff. So we're going to run 3 X Windows commands to make sure that when the browser is running in the hallway, no, I'm not, I'm just reading this, Scott. Yeah, what the heck? I can show this to you on screen. Let me do this. I'm going to do this with putty. Let me fire up a putty session. Kiosk. I know you're not seeing it yet. Pi, Raspberry. Okay, I think the font on this is big enough. We've tried this in the past. So let's share this. All right, Scott will let me know if that font is big enough to see. Because can I do that in here? About to read things. Special commands, event log, session, duplicate, save session, change settings. Sounds like a good place for fonts. Logging terminal, keyboard, bell. Okay, big enough, says the man. Thank you. Let's get out of those settings. Okay. So they want us to create a file. Now, this file already exists in here. So I'm going to make one with a different title, nano kiosk1.sh. And we'll build this file just the way they want us to do this in their order. And it's an acceptable order. Oops, it missed the whack bang, the shebang. Okay, so here's our 4 commands that they want us to add to the kiosk.sh file so far. Shebang bin bash, that's fun to say, and then 3 xset commands that will prevent our screen from blanking while it's running, right? Because by default, if you leave a Pi running with the screen on, in 10 minutes, the screen goes into shutdown mode. Pi's still working. I got 11 Pis here running, but they're all in screen shutdown mode. So I'm not going to get into the detail, just copy and paste them and accept them. These two turn it off at the software level, and this one sends a command that says, don't use any power. It sends it to the monitor, and it says, don't do your own shutdown mode. So that's kind of good to know. All right, next. Now we're going to add a line that says unclutter. Put that in there. Again, if you're following this along in the tutorial, you'll see all this. Unclutter, idle 0.5 seconds, and then these parameters. Do it with root power. Unclutter means make the mouse pointer go away if it's been idle for a half a second. Now you can still use your monitor on here and keyboard, and if you wiggle it around, you'll move your mouse. You'll see when I run the demo that the mouse pointer will turn into a tiny little, almost invisible dot. So they won't be able to see that it's a mouse or a browser. Okay, then here's my fun one. Said. A zillion years ago, in the 70s or so, Unix geeks, sorry, what did you just hit there, Goober? Oh, stop it. Let me cut that line and fix it. Okay, fine, we'll do it the hard way. Okay, there was the unclutter. Now we're going to do the sed line. Control C, move it here. Okay, I see what happened. All right, there we go. So back in the 70s, Linux, well, they weren't Linux geeks back then, they were Unix geeks, and Linux came on later to display their Linux cred. They used to wear shirts that said awk, AWK, grep, and sed. And those are all text command manipulations in the Linux environment. Sed is a weird command. It takes the output text of a program and edits it. So what we're going to do with our sed command, with all this junk, I'm not going to explain it all. It's not worthwhile. Just copy and paste it and be happy. Any error messages, 404 errors, unable to find page, whatever, that would pop up in a browser if something went wrong, it prevents them from showing up. So the browser will continue to run to the next thing, or it'll be hung there on that page, but it won't show the error messages. So that's kind of cool. Oh, and I want you to know if you create this line, make sure you put a space in front of this whack home. That's the way it's done in their tutorial, so they got it right. And then we're going to do another sed line, just more error handling. Okay, good. Good seds. Now we got to set it up to launch in Chromium mode and set it in, or launch Chromium and set it in Kiosk mode. So here we go. Put this line in. All right, so the Chromium browser command is in the user bin folder. Make sure it doesn't generate any error dialogues. We got double dashes here. Get rid of the information bars, run it in Kiosk mode, and then we're going to follow that up with the list of pages that we want to appear in the rotation. And these are the few that they've selected for their example. I'm going to give you a different list when we get all done with this, but these work fine. So if we run this script right now, we're just about ready to go, but it's got a problem. I want you to do an experiment sometime today, later. Load up a couple of tabs. Just set up 3 or 4 tabs, whatever you got. In any browser you know of. I tried this with 4 common browsers: Chromium, of course, Firefox, Brave, Edge, some other browser I tried, and they all work in here. So just set up 4 tabs with different pages in them, and then pick any tab you want, and then hold down the Control and Tab key at the same time. And whatever tab you're in, your browser will move to the next tab to the right. Control Tab, next tab to the right. And when you get to the last tab that you have open on the right and you do Control Tab again, boink, it jumps over to the leftmost tab. And you can just cycle through that all the time. Well, that's what we're going to do in Chromium, except we're going to use a program that generates that Control Tab keystroke. So here comes a subroutine and the program. Now we've already installed the program with a sudo apt-get up earlier. So here's a do loop. While true, we're going to use the xdo tool. Xdo tool is a program that runs in a script that will send commands, keystroke commands, to the script or the program that you're running within the script. Now, if you just want to run one keystroke, let's say that the letter A did something in Chromium browser, I could say xdo tool A. Yeah, that's it. Just the letter A, and it will send A to there. But if you want to send multiple, hold down Control and Tab or Alt and F4, then we have to add this command to it, key down, and then you list the keys that you want to be pressed simultaneously, Control and Tab. And then, since you've got them both pressed, they got to come up. So I do a semicolon and then run key up, Control Tab. And then wait. I've got 7 seconds that I set on mine. It's different than the tutorial. Wait 7 seconds and then do it again, and it'll Control Tab to the next one. So this will automatically cycle through however many tabs you set up in this line. There's no limit, come here you, to how many tab pages you can define here. Just make a list of tab pages, separate them by spaces, and you're off to the races. You can even do things like F2 key. F1 key, you want to bring up the help thing. And if you're interested, there's a tutorial. Just look for tutorial xdo tool, and you'll find it, all the different commands and things you can do with. It's incredibly powerful. And if I were doing a presentation on it, I would. All right, we're going to finish this, and we're going to finish it on time. By the way, you could also add, this is from the tutorial, this line in the do loop above the sleep line. Come here, you. Okay, we'll do it like that. And this will cause the page that you're on to refresh. So if you've got one of those pages that doesn't refresh and you need updated information, then that's a good line to add to it. I don't need it. All right, so we are done. I'm going to make one change here. No, I'm not. I just manually added it after the fact. Okay, so then you save this thing, Control X. Yes, enter. It's saved. And then here's the one step that's missing from the tutorial. This script is not yet executable. So what you've got to do is one of two commands on it. Now I'm going to do it on the one that I just created. You got to say chmod. You may need a sudo in front of it, +X, and then the name of the script that you just created, kiosk. I just made it kiosk1.sh. Bam, it's done. Or you, oops, I said plus without the X. Let's try that again. Chmod +X. There we go. Or instead of +X, you can say 755. And now it will be executable. Hey, so we're done. Oh, one more thing. Now I got to make sure that this happens every time we boot. So to do that, there's one thing that you have to do in advance. Following the tutorial again now, we're going to learn a fact about it. We're going to type in the command echo space. Remember, this is Linux. It's case sensitive. Echo display. Display is a Linux variable that has information about certain display settings, and we need to know what that setting is right now. And if you spell echo with 2 E's, it won't work. All right, this you got to do from your screen. It didn't show up in here because I'm in here, but it's the results of this when I'm on my real screen are :0.0. It's weird, but okay. All right, so now we've got to set this so that it becomes a service, right? You got all kinds of services running in Linux machines. They launch whenever they're whenever you boot up your Linux machine, and they run all the time in the background. For instance, if you run htop, here's a list of all the services and processes that are running in this computer. Q to get out of that. So what we do is we create it as a service and we install it. The way we do this, just follow the steps on here. We don't have to understand it. We just have to do it. Though I will do a class on this one day. So I'm going to recreate this as kiosk1 service. Now, I'm not going to hit the enter key on here because I've already got a kiosk service running and it could potentially conflict. But when you hit the enter key on here, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to say, okay, I did it. So this is going to register create a new service called kiosk service. And now we got to make a file. Sorry, that wasn't the register. That was just creating the service file. Can I do that? Yeah, what the heck? Let's do it. Got ahead of myself. So I'll make kiosk1 service. And we're going to put the following lines in it. Just copy and paste them. This is a service configuration file. And this is the default in the tutorial. External environment equals display equals :0.0. That's what the variable happened to be in my computer as well. So I was able to leave it alone. If when you ran that echo $display and you got a different value than this, put whatever value you got there into here after the equal sign. All right, so again, it's just a configuration file. I'm not going to do it. Oh, there's a few more things in this file. It was on my next page. Let me get those added in. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. If anything goes wrong while this service is running, automatically restart it. Start it every time we boot up, and the start is going to be to run this bash script in my home folder, Kiosk 1 it would be, since that's what I just created. The operating account and operating group is going to be Pi, and then this is a part of the configuration file that I'm not going to spell. Note that the line after graphical target. Okay, don't care about that. And so we can save this. This is just a config file. It's not going to do anything until we register it. So I'll save that. And the next thing now, the final step, is to enable the service. And this one I'm not going to hit the enter key on because I don't want it to conflict with the service that I've already got running. Let's do a clear here. You would use Kiosk. I would use Kiosk 1. So this takes and reads that service file that we've read, enables it as a service, and registers it in the system control facility, the program. And we're done. The project is complete. So now the cool part is, let me get out of that. So I've got an SSH session running on this server or on this computer. This is just my Chromium browser machine. There's no web server on here or anything like that. So we're going to start that service. And I'm going to show this to you two ways. I'm going to show you, first of all, the command that we'll put in here to start it. But I'm not going to hit the enter key. Now I'm going to unshare this. And I'm going to share my Kiosk browser machine. Okay, there's Kiosk. Let's share it. Now I've got 7 or 8 pages ready to go. So this is, if you had this, a Pi, that Pi hooked up to a monitor on the wall, hooked up to a projector, this is what we would see initially when the Pi booted up. Now I'm going to go back over to that command line and I'm going to hit the enter key. Bam. Kiosk.service. I created this. I haven't done anything. I ran this morning. This machine has not rebooted. Always something, right? Okay, I'm on the Kiosk machine. Fine. I can fix this. Let me check something. There's a minor error here. ls system control start kiosk.service ls. Oh, let's make sure this is here. That file can't have gone away. I wonder if something happened when I was playing around that this didn't get enabled. No such file or directory. What is going on here? Okay. There's the kiosk. Let's get rid of this. rm kiosk1.sh. Okay, that's gone. Kiosk shell is here. Let me check this. I'm going to do this in the terminal so you can see my troubleshooting process. All right, there's the original kiosk.sh that I ran yesterday. Let's look at its contents. Kiosk.sh. Okay, there it is. And I got a whole bunch more pages in here. Now I'm going to check and make sure that the service file that I created is there. Okay, it's there, 00, everything is there. Cool. I wonder if I disabled it so I could show it to you doing it all. It has all the right lines in it. So if the GUI is loaded, save that. Let's enable the service in case I accidentally disabled it. All right, it didn't gripe. And now we launch it. And this one I'm not going to launch from here. I'm going to go back to my putty session. So let's exit this. You can still watch that screen. How are we doing here? 53. Okay, we're going to make it. I'm in kiosk. Sudo system control start kiosk.service. All right, let's try this. It's not operating from putty. It works fine from here. Same error message. Sudo system control command not found. Because I made a typo. Always the way, right? Okay, I can still do this in the way I wanted to do it. Close that, Control C, exit this, go back and fix it in putty. Right click, not sitemctl, systemctl, bam. All right, watch it thou this. Okay, so now she cycles through pages. Got them set up for 7 seconds. The first time you go through here, timing is always a little bit off. So these are web pages that I stole. No, these are screen captures with images that I just grabbed from different web servers. That's the first 4 of them. So this is good for signage. I like that one. And then this is a real live web server right now that you're watching. It brought up a pop-up, so that's not a good page to add, or I'd have to do some kind of pop-up blocker in here. This is a long, complicated page that's loading up. Again, it'll happen quicker after it goes through the first cycle. One more, I think. Hey, look at that. Happy Pi Day over at Adafruit. And now it should cycle back to the beginning. Yeah, there we go. All right. So there's a sign that you could have. And if I'm going to do this in airport, I'd probably run these for 10 or 20 seconds per page. So to get out of this, I've got to do it from SSH, which I closed. But now instead of system start, we'll do a system stop. So let me get in that real quick and then shut it down. Oh, heck, I can let it run and just stop the share. I'll shut it down later. That is Chromium in kiosk mode. And like I said, this is a saleable product. You can build one of these at your house, pick the web pages, design them, work with your customer, and you're just cooking with gas. Oh, let's fix this in the script. Change that from sitem control to system control so it'll save my files. All right, any other junk after this that I wanted to read to you? Change screens, different resolutions. It's scalable. It's saleable. last thing. So the two projects that we did today dovetail beautifully together. I got 4 minutes. It'll take them 1 minute to do this and then 3 minutes for questions. If I missed any questions and Scott didn't answer, post them now real quick. You could set up your web server with the custom pages that you want, your customer wants to see or whatever, right here in the house. Build, design, work on them anytime you want, and just have your various kiosk browsers all over the world access your in-house web server to get some of those pages. That's awesome. Ddns and kiosk browsers for the win. All right, well, let's wind her up then. It took a hair longer than I planned just because of the dumb typo error, but let me see. I'm going to refresh this page, so I'm going to lose messages for a momento. It's okay. It's coming back up. Come on, show me the chat feed now. There it is. Live chat. And at the end. All right, looking down at the end here, just picking it up. Oh, there wasn't much that came after. No, there it is. I'm going to start in the 350s real quick, see what's up there. Things got quiet at 326. Vista Chris came in. Good to see you. Zach, nice to see you, mi amigo. And you got your Net Plus in the morning. You're not here to hear that, but good luck. We'll throw it up on Discord. Good luck on Net Plus. Yep, everybody's wishing them high and buys. 350. You should do like a cooking show. One pie you're working on, the other one, yeah, straight from the oven. Exactly. That would be great. Okay, that's signage. Lads and lasses. See, even Dave says signage. Okay, you've got a last question from Nolawit, last comment. So you can set up one pie with multiple different signs. Sure, it's just different pages. So make as many HTML pages that you want. What have I got here? Yeah, I can show you this real quick. A quickie on here. VNC. So let me show you my web server. Raspberry. Share it. All right, so this is my web server. Got a server in my house called PyBand Test. And this banner's misplaced, but here's my index.php. That's the one that you're hitting when you hit my shared web server. And then here's the 4 pages that I created to be cycled through on Kiosk Mode pies. 20 seconds. So all they are is 2 lines of text. This is cycle tab 1, image of menu board, and then a path to the graphic that I wanted to appear there, that little sandwich menu board. All right, well, it's time to go. And they don't like me to drag it out past hours, so I won't. I'm going to wish you all a super happy, wonderful weekend. I want you to be safe. I want you to hopefully experience some opportunities as we begin to break out of pandemic conditions and we get vaccines and all that good stuff. Next week's show, I'm deciding between either a VPN or Docker, some kind of container, Pytainer, something like that. I'll make that decision on the weekend as I experiment with the 2 of them. If they're too hard, I'll pick something different. Not sure what Mike is doing Monday. He mentioned a couple of possibilities, but he didn't commit to them. So turn up on Monday, 2 o'clock Central Time for Mike's AMA. My thanks to Scott for his incredible background moderation and his communications with me. My thanks to Mike for letting me have this time to share with you. And of course, mostly my thanks to you for showing up. See you on Monday and see you again on Pi Day Friday next week. Remember, Pi Day, real Pi Day Friday, 314, online, real stuff going on at raspberrypi.org. Yes, I will be on Discord. I'll be on there in about 10 to 15 minutes. Docker, please, says Alice, done deal. I don't know, because I'm really excited about VPNs too. New time on Monday for me. We don't change time. Of course not. You're Hawaii. All right, I'm out. I'm going to hit the big red button. You go to the page that does that. Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a good and safe weekend. We are out of here.